It's just kind of who I am. I want to pour into my team as much as possible, and I'm pretty in tune with my body. I can read a room pretty well, and so when I see we're lacking a little bit, you got to step up. But if we're good, you're just there to encourage and give people confidence.
Something massive is brewing in Indiana, and if you're a WNBA fan, you already know the temperature in the league just went up several degrees. The Fever are building something that other teams genuinely did not see coming at this scale. And right at the center of it all is a name that Indiana fans have been holding their breath over for months. Sophie Cunningham, the enforcer, the shooter. The woman who made the rest of the WNBA think twice before trying anything slick near Caitlin Clark. After a season that ended in heartbreak and an offseason full of uncertainty, it looks like the band is about to get back together, and the rest of the league is not happy about it. Let's go back to where this story really started. Before Sophie Cunningham ever set foot on the court in Indiana, she was a fixture in Phoenix. And 7 years with the Mercury, building a reputation as one of the most physically imposing guards in the WNBA. Not imposing because of her scoring numbers, but imposing in the way that made opposing coaches draw up extra plans. She could shoot threes at a nearly 47% clip, lock down perimeter players on defense, and she had no fear, none. That combination of skills is rare, but what was even rarer was her mentality. Sophie Cunningham does not back down from anyone. That personality trait was mostly just a fun storyline when she was in Phoenix. In Indiana, next to Caitlin Clark, it became a weapon. The trade that brought her to Indiana last offseason didn't get nearly enough attention at the time. The Fever gave up Nalissa Smith, a 2025 first-round pick, and a 2027 third-round pick across a 4-team deal just to land Cunningham. That's a serious price to pay for a role player, but Indiana's front office saw something most people were sleeping on. They didn't just need shooters around Clark. They needed someone who could protect her, someone who would not let opponents get comfortable being physical or aggressive near their franchise player. Sophie Cunningham was exactly that person, and she proved it almost immediately after pulling on the Fever jersey. From the very first weeks of the 2025 season, the dynamic on that team shifted. Cunningham came off the bench, averaging 8.6 points per game on elite efficiency, knocking down 1.7 threes per night, pulling down 3.5 rebounds, and recording a steal per game. Those numbers look modest on paper, but they don't tell the whole story. What the box score can't capture is the way she changed the energy every single time she checked in. Teams started playing differently against Indiana the moment she was out there. They knew if they got cute or tried to bully Clark on the ball, there was a 6'1" guard with a hair-trigger temper and zero hesitation waiting to respond. The Fever went from a talented but somewhat soft perimeter team to a unit with real teeth, and Cunningham was a huge reason why. Then came the injury that shook everything. Deep into the 2025 season, as the Fever were building genuine playoff momentum, Cunningham went down with a torn MCL in her right knee. It was the kind of injury that doesn't just hurt the player. It changes the entire calculation for a team. Indiana fought through the rest of the regular season and made it to the playoffs, but the absence was felt. The Fever fell to the Las Vegas Aces in the semifinals, and while Clark's own injury situation was a factor, losing Cunningham down the stretch created a hole on the wing that couldn't be easily filled. The timing was brutal, the injury was serious, and suddenly her future in Indiana became a massive question mark overnight. Here's where the story gets complicated in the best possible way. As the 2025-26 offseason unfolded, Cunningham became an unrestricted free agent. Her one-year, $100,000 contract expired, and under the WNBA's new collective bargaining agreement, the landscape had changed dramatically. The salary cap jumped to $7 million, meaning teams suddenly had real money to spend. That was great news for players and great leverage for Cunningham. Other franchises were circling. The Chicago Sky, the LA Sparks, and multiple expansion teams had rosters to fill and money available. The Indiana Fever, meanwhile, had to navigate a brutal set of competing priorities. They committed $1.4 million to a supermax deal for Kelsey Mitchell. They had Aaliyah Boston's extension on the table. Caitlin Clark's own situation needed to be addressed. The math was getting tight, and suddenly the most popular player in Indiana outside of Clark herself was looking at a very real possibility of walking out the door. But then something happened that no financial spreadsheet could account for. Caitlin Clark made her feelings known publicly. While working for NBC during the off-season, Clark said plainly that she wanted the core group back. She mentioned the group of players she felt confident would return and made clear the chemistry built in 2025 was something worth protecting. That kind of public endorsement from a player of Clark's commercial power isn't just emotional noise. It sends a message to the front office that resonates at every level. When your franchise player, the one driving sellouts, record TV ratings, and national media coverage, says she wants a specific teammate back, general managers listen very carefully. The Fever front office heard her loud and clear. Meanwhile, Cunningham spent the offseason doing exactly what you'd expect from someone with her personality. She wasn't sitting still, waiting on a phone call. She launched her 4th annual Sophie Cunningham Classic Basketball Tournament back in her hometown of Columbia, Missouri, giving elite high school girls players a stage to perform and learn. She dropped into the Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue, which caused the internet to completely lose its mind. And then, she shocked Fever fans in the best and worst possible way, at the same time when she announced she was joining USA Network as a studio contributor for WNBA coverage. The collective panic was instant. Was she retiring? Was she pivoting to media full-time? Was Indiana losing her without even getting a chance to make an offer? The answers came quickly, but not before fans had a solid 24 hours of absolute anxiety about the whole situation. The clarification came from insider Scott Aginis, who reported that the USA Network deal was in addition to playing, not instead of it. The comparison being made was to Caitlin Clark's NBC deal, or Draymond Green's arrangement with TNT. In other words, Cunningham would be on television breaking down games and providing analysis on the days she wasn't on the court. It's actually a genius move. It builds her brand, increases her visibility, and shows any team negotiating with her that Sophie Cunningham is about more than a paycheck. She's a franchise-level personality. She's someone fans tune in to see specifically. And she clearly has no shortage of options, which makes the Fever's job in free agency negotiations considerably more interesting. The WNBA officially opened negotiations between teams and free agents on April 9th, 2026, meaning Indiana could finally sit down at the table with Cunningham and her representatives. Both sides had already expressed interest in making a deal work. The desire was there from every direction. Cunningham had been vocal about loving the situation in Indiana, about clicking with Clark, and about believing in what the Fever were building. The Fever had shown through trade capital and public statements that they valued what she brought. But desire doesn't pay the bills. The real question hanging over every conversation is whether Indiana can fit a meaningful contract for Cunningham into a cap structure that already has serious obligations at the top. Caitlin Clark is on her rookie deal still, but that changes. Aaliyah Boston needs to be paid. Mitchell's Supermax is locked in. The math has to work, and these things never come together as cleanly as you'd want. What makes this situation so electric for the broader league and so terrifying for opposing teams is what an Indiana roster with Cunningham back actually looks like. Picture this. You have Caitlin Clark running the offense, already one of the most unguardable players in WNBA history because of her range and vision. You have Kelsey Mitchell coming off a 20.2-point season and locked up for 2026. You have Aaliyah Boston as arguably the best frontcourt presence in the league when healthy. And then you add Sophie Cunningham back to that wing rotation, fully healthy from the MCL injury that ended her 2025 early. That is not a cute little feel-good story about chemistry and friendship. That is a legitimately terrifying basketball team. There's no weakness to attack. You can't go under screens because of Clark. You can't be physical because of Cunningham. You can't ignore Boston in the post. Mitchell will torch you if you collapse. The league has had time to build around and prepare for Indiana with gaps in the roster. If that gap gets closed, the entire competitive landscape shifts. And that's not even the most interesting wrinkle to this whole thing. The WNBA is expanding. The Portland Fire and Toronto Tempo are brand new franchises, desperate for impact players, veteran leadership, and names that can sell tickets. Cunningham, as an unrestricted free agent, was technically fair game. The expansion draft concluded with both teams allowed only one unrestricted free agent pick each, and they used those picks on different players. But the free agency window was a different story entirely. Portland and Toronto had roster holes, money to spend, and every reason in the world to make a run at someone as marketable and productive as Cunningham. If Indiana fumbled the bag, spent too long negotiating, came in too low on the offer, let other conversations develop, she could have been wearing a completely different jersey this spring. The Fever knew it. The league knew it. And now, as negotiations intensify and the preseason opener on April 25th against the New York Liberty approaches, the clock is ticking on getting this done. You also can't ignore what this reunion would mean for the culture that Clark has built around the Fever. Part of what made Indiana so compelling to watch in 2025 wasn't just the wins or the stats, it was the vibe. It was Cunningham running to midcourt to jaw at someone who fouled Clark too hard. It was the bench energy, the sideline celebrations, the way this team clearly enjoyed playing together. That culture is fragile. It doesn't survive a complete roster turnover. And Cunningham was one of the players most responsible for setting the tone that made the Fever feel dangerous, beyond just their star players' individual brilliance. Losing that in free agency means starting over on something that took a full season to build. Keeping it means walking into 2026 with momentum, continuity, and a chip on the shoulder after that semi-final loss. Some fans have pushed back on the idea of bringing Cunningham back. A portion of the Indiana fan base has openly argued that the Fever need to use their cap space to upgrade rather than just reload. The argument goes something like, Cunningham is entering her 30s. She's had repeated injury problems throughout her career. She's never averaged more than 4.4 rebounds or 2.1 assists for a full season, and there are younger, healthier wings available in a deep free agent class. Those are fair points. The WNBA is getting more competitive at every position, especially on the wing. The expansion of the league means roster spots are more available than ever, which has also pulled more elite players into free agency. Cunningham is a good player, but she is not a transformative piece by herself. The case for bringing her back is about role fit, team culture, and Clark's specific preferences in how she wants to play. And those are real factors, but they're also softer than pure talent evaluation. The other element here that people aren't discussing enough is Cunningham's knee. A torn MCL isn't a career-ending injury, and the timeline generally allows for a full recovery before a new season begins. ESPN's own fantasy analysts noted that the injury shouldn't impact her availability for the start of 2026. But that word, shouldn't, carries weight when you're a front office making a financial commitment. How do you price a player coming off a significant knee injury, who already had durability questions before the injury even happened? She's appeared in more than 31 regular season games only once in her entire 7-year career. She's been productive, but she's never been available for a full season. Under the old CBA with low salaries, that risk was manageable. Under the new CBA, with cap space at a premium and a full free agent market offering alternatives, every dollar matters. Indiana has to love what Cunningham brings. Yeah, but they also have to be realistic about what they're buying, what seems most likely, and what the tone of nearly every report and insider comment suggests is that a deal gets done. The fit is too good, the chemistry is too real, the competitive pressure is too intense for Indiana to walk into 2026 having lost their most important cultural piece alongside Clark for no reason except a contract dispute. Cunningham wants to be there. Clark has made clear she wants her there. The front office has shown they value her. The question isn't whether both sides want this to happen. It's whether the Fever can make the numbers work and whether Cunningham decides Indiana's offer is the best she can do in a market where her value has genuinely jumped because of her profile. Given that free agency just opened days ago and the signing window begins Saturday, the timeline is compressed but completely workable. The Fever preseason begins April 25th. There's still time. What the league is genuinely afraid of isn't just that Indiana gets Cunningham back, it's what that signals about the broader trajectory of this franchise. Every piece that gets locked into place around Clark is one more obstacle for every other team to deal with for the next several years. The Fever are not a flash-in-the-pan novelty act, riding one player's name recognition. They made the WNBA semifinals in 2025, won meaningful games against elite competition, and did it with a roster that was incomplete and still finding itself. If they come back with Clark, Mitchell, Boston, and Cunningham all fully healthy and playing at full capacity for a complete season, they are legitimate championship contenders from day one, not charming dark horses. Not a fun story, actual contenders. The Las Vegas Aces, the Minnesota Lynx, the New York Liberty. Every powerhouse in this league has to look at that roster and start making adjustments. Sophie Cunningham returning to Indiana isn't just a roster transaction. It's a statement. It says the Fever are serious, that the culture they built isn't something they're willing to discard in the name of chasing a flashier upgrade, and that Caitlin Clark is surrounded by the kind of competitive infrastructure that gives a generational talent the platform to win. The league has spent 2 years trying to figure out how to slow down Indiana. They've thrown every defensive scheme imaginable at Clark. They've gotten physical. They've tried to disrupt the chemistry and the rhythm. None of it has worked at the level they hoped. Now imagine trying to do all of that against a version of Indiana that is more experienced, more cohesive, and fully healthy at every key position. That is what the rest of the WNBA is looking at in the coming days as this free agency situation resolves. And whether they admit it publicly or not, they are not looking forward to it.